Around real quick before we begin, say hello to people. We got Rick and Judy, Margaret Santalier. I always called her Margarita, but Grant started calling her Margaret. So I'm calling her Margaret. I'm going to pay for this. We've got Pat Sullivan, who I did not realize how old she is. And there's a long, funny story about that. And there's her sister, of course, Maureen. We got Christine. Oh, isn't that sweet? Look at Christine and John cuddling together.
We did that.
That is really annoying.
That's an anniversary present to you.
We got Ed Johnson from Florence, South Carolina, and Nanette from Brooklyn, Connecticut. Melissa by the golf course, Nick up near the airport, Ray from Washington Heights, Dennis from Port St. Lucie. Felix has said will be on the way to visit his husband. They're doing an art shows. Donald Grimmy, our tech in August. Sarah in Alabama. Cecilia down the street. Daniel is also visiting with us today from Queens. He is a neighbor of Pat Sullivan and Mary Grimmy. All right, having said that, let me have a couple of announcements before we get going. Rick Wallach is out of the hospital. We never thought he was going to make it, and he's now in rehab. He is off dialysis. He's breathing on his own. He's doing much, much, much better. Number two, something interesting has happened in the last 6 months rather, and I share this with you because I think it's rather funny and disturbing and funny and all of that at the same time. I've suddenly been reverended. When we got started out here, everybody called me by my first name. But in the last 6 months, all of a sudden people have been using the word reverend, seriously. And I'm not sure how or why that's happened. You all have different things that if you feel comfortable using the word reverend, well, okay. Technically, it should be doctor, because when your minister has a doctorate, it should be doctor if you're going to use titles, but use whatever you feel comfortable. It seems strange to me, after all these years of going by Ken or Kenneth to being reverended again. So do what you see fit. But I just thought it was an interesting thing. The congregation triples in size and suddenly I get reverended. And I always have these images of Cotton Mather and these Puritan ministers. And I remember the Scarlet Letter with the Reverend Arthur Dimsdale, and I freak out when I hear the word reverend. So do as you see fit, but I have
okay, Doc.
Okay.
There's still no pay raise.
I love that. Moving along, class still continues. I want to remind everybody that class is designed at 10 a.m. It's designed for people to come and go. We have gotten no further than the Othman. Maureen's sister, whose name will go unmentioned, the entity, came up with a great idea for those of you in class. Tell them what you're supposed to do. Tell them what the homework is.
You're muted.
Unmute.
In one tweet, describe your Atman.
Your Atman is that part of the divine within you. Hinduism believes there's divine around you and everywhere, and this part of that is in you. So in one tweet, you have to define the Atman in you. Don't ask where she came up with tweet. We have no idea how the entity's mind works, but that's our homework for next week. Yes, Nanette.
Do I have to do it on Twitter?
No. We bring it to class.
Okay.
Okay.
The point was the constraint of 280 characters because Dr. Ken said be brief.
Didn't want a masterpiece or a treatise. He wanted it to be brief. So
thank you. All right, moving along then. Pictures, and tell me about music. Where's Ray? Ray, where are you? He was just here.
Right here.
Right. Ray suggested a song. I don't always get to use it. The Sunday people suggest, but you're going to love it today. It's a group I've never heard of before. It's called Casting Crowns, and it's a beautiful piece of music. And so when you have music that you think would fit for us, send it along to me, and I will find a place to make it fit. Because I'm not a brilliant library of music a lot of the music I get is suggestions that you make. It takes me a while to fit it in, but I have a whole list here. Look at all this. This is all the music that you guys have given. Look at all this. This is all on music. So all the stuff that you come up with, I find a way of cataloging. And some I can use and some I can't, but I try to find a way to get most of it in. So again, thank you, Ray. Two more things, then we'll go ahead and start the service. There is a proposed 8th principle. We have 7 principles in our association. And I'll be sending this out to everybody. And it's what we do already, but they've written it down. And I'll ask the board to look at this and then send it on to all of us to vote. We, the member congregations of the UUA Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. You know, and I know that we have things that we haven't thought about. Living in Miami, we are surrounded by multiple communities, multiple groups, multiple ideologies. But it's to remind us to continually work at that. For instance, we used to give money to Pride Lines. We have in this city of Miami, between 150 and 200 teenagers that wander the streets at night because they've been thrown out of their homes because they're LGBTQ. Pride Lines has no place to put them after closing hours. They can house, and they've got really good showers, and they've got excellent certified counselors and therapists, but they have no overnight accommodations. So this is a kind of example of we've got things right in our own community, in our own backyard, of racism and other kinds of communities. So it's a thing we want to think about. And the 8th principle is saying, you know, don't talk about it, put it down and just start doing it. So I'll send that on to the board and onto the and then on to everybody else. And finally, just a comment about our worship service. For those of you who have been in other communities, you'll notice this is a service that demands a lot when you participate. In our original settings in New England, the congregation sat. They listened to a choir and they listened to a minister. They didn't do much except to say the Lord's Prayer and maybe mumble a doxology at the offering. And that was it. We are using the Christian service of word and sacrament. That's the order, but the content is obviously everything under the sun. We have Hindu readings, Jewish readings, Sufi readings. And so the idea is to get all of us to participate. So I use the order because you'll notice those who wish. There's a call to worship we get involved in, an opening prayer, responsive readings, and all of that. The idea is to make this all together. Having said that, where were my readers today? I didn't have any readers, anybody volunteering to read. So please, 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 we love to have people to read. Nanette, you want to read this morning? What? Nanette, mute.
Unmute. Okay. I don't know how to get the readings up on my screen. If you can put them up, I'll read them.
I'll have them displayed, Nanette.
Okay, just tell me when then.
Okay, I'll announce Nanette's reading today. Anybody else want to read? Okay, from now on, we love readers. This is not a one-man show, so we love readers already. All right,
Hey.
having said that, yes. Anybody
I'll read.
else? Okay, I'll put you down then. Okay, do you want to read today?
Yes.
Okay, you'll do the responsive reading. So
Okay.
Nanette, you'll do 2 readings. I'll announce you and you're going to lead in the responsive reading. That means you read the first one and we'll read the indented. And Margarita puts them up. Yeah,
Okay.
try it. Hey, we're in this together. It doesn't make any, we're not looking for, we're A1 actors. We're looking for people to read and work it together. All right, having said that, we're going to have our lighting of the memorial candle, and I have a list here today. We have out our candle today for the following. We want to remember the people in Haiti. The country is fallen apart at the seams and has been a country in turmoil for many, 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 many decades, a couple of centuries. but at the present time, it is really, really in bad shape. We still want to remember the grieving in Surfside. This is not over. Those who have lost people in a very horrible, horrible way, it's not over. We lost people in the last hurricane. Elsa people died in Elsa, and people this year died in the heat dome out on the West Coast. And finally, I read a very, very sad article this morning in the New York Times about the thousands of orphans that are now in India. Their parents have died, their grandparents have died, and they have thousands of little kids that are total orphans. So for Surfside, Haiti, Elsa, the heat dome, and our orphans, we open up our hearts, light a candle, keep them in our thoughts, in our prayers. Our introit is thanks to, again, one of you who introduced me to Nina Simone. And I guess I'm, again, the last person on the planet to have ever heard this person sing. Nina is going to sing.
How you know how I feel? Sun in the
Nina Simone was a famous African-American singer, battled racism and battled being bipolar, and finally died in France in Provence after a very fascinating career. And like so many, she now has been thoroughly recognized for the fabulous voice and life that she lived in all its ups and downs. Our call to worship, for those of you who will read it together with me. For the dreamers, the survivors, the brave souls fighting their own personal battles, you are not alone. And our opening prayer, for those of you who wish, is an old Hindu prayer. If you read it together with me, for those who wish, let us look to this day, for it is life, the very breath of life. In its brief course lie all the realities of our existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is only a dream, and tomorrow a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every moment tomorrow a vision of hope. I want to thank Ray for giving us that song. I was not aware of the group, and Ray kindly shared it with us. We're going to now ask you all to mute. Be sure to mute. Nanette is going to read the two readings. One is from Matthew and John. Then Christine Sloan will lead us in a responsive reading by Mary Oliver. And then Nanette will pick up then with readings by Rumi. And I'm sure she knows the one by Rumi by heart. So Nanette, if you please read these readings from John and Matthew.
Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, I would have told you that I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and I will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also.
And our responsive reading is by Mary Oliver, and we're going to ask Christine Sloan. She'll read the outside part. Together, we will read the indented. If you would lead us, Christine.
You do not have to be good.
You do
You do
not
not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting.
You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves.
Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine.
Oh, mine. Oh, you, mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on.
Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the wor
Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again.
And together,
Whoever
whoever you
You
are,
are,
no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place
in
in the family of things. And then we're going to ask a very famous reading by Rumi, if Nanette would continue with that.
This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Good job.
You're muted, Doc.
Grant us, we ask, to speak, to hear, and to learn, so that our fears may be banished, our minds may become enlightened, our faith be increased, our steps directed toward you. We've been talking about the soul and your various thoughts about the soul. And one of you was to write the following: mine is deflated and torn to pieces. I am struggling to heal it and become more in tune with life. And I'm thinking, here we are giving tweets and theses and everything about a soul, and somebody speaks reality. It's nice to talk about the soul, but what about mine? Mine hurts. And I thought we need to take some time to talk about healing. And so I share some thoughts and your thoughts this morning. Number one, every soul gets battered, bruised, physically, emotionally, and chemically too. Whether you consider the soul your personality, your being, whatever definition you use, everybody gets battered regularly throughout life. Not all the time, but everybody has not just a moment, but moments when things have been just plain awful. And there's no getting around it. You can't sugarcoat it. Everybody has experienced that. You know that as well as I do. The timeless question that Job asked, why do bad things happen to good people? I have heard, like most of you here, more answers than I could count. None of them, to me, were satisfactory. Not one of them. The idea is you're suffering. Well, you have to have faith. Faith will work just fine. You just need faith. Somehow you ain't got enough faith. You're sinning. Your sin is in the way. That simply does not help for me. The reality is, as my wife often puts it, she says, that's the reality, Kenneth. The reality is sometimes you don't have good answers to tough questions. I have no idea why there's evil, and I have no idea why bad things happen to good people. So I moved on. My question then is, what do you do with it? You can argue till the sun comes up and down a million years why things happen and still not get a good answer. The question is, what do you do with what you've got? I'm very practical. So I just share some things. And I think we do some things that are all in order. We do them at the same time. Number one, we look at ancient words. The ancients have much to tell us. And I thought it was interesting. It's that I pulled these quotes up from Jesus because today, the Jesus that most of us get is not the Jesus that's in the Galilean preacher that existed 2,000 years ago. We get all this dogma and doctrine, but it's interesting when you listen to Jesus's basic words, notice how unqualified they are. Blessed are those who mourn. Hindu, atheist, he doesn't say what kind you have to be. He doesn't say, blessed are those who mourn if you follow me. He never said that. All he said are, blessed are those who mourn. A complete open door. He said, come to me, all that are heavy burdened and are weary, and I will give you rest. He didn't say, come to me if you're not LGBTQ, if you're not a certain race, not a certain religion. He never said that. His words were, come to me, no qualifications. Come to me, all who are weary and are carrying heavy burdens. No qualifications. And you wouldn't get that today. You get today, you have to believe a certain creed, or you have to be saved, or you have to accept Jesus as your Lord, or. That's never what he said. He was a poor Galilean preacher who tried to reach out to people and offer them, without any kinds of explanations, comfort and hope. The idea, if you study him, is he would often lay his hands upon people. Did you ever notice, by the way, when somebody's hurting, what do? You reach out and touch them, do you not? You give them a hug, do you not? I don't know why people flip out about this. Jesus took his hands and touched them. Like, that's bad, but it's okay if we do that. I never understood what goes on with this. Here he was, a Galilean preacher, poor, and he would do things that drove everybody nuts. He would see somebody poor and touch them. He would come up to lepers. Who did that? He would talk to a woman, a Samaritan woman. Bad, 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 bad. I could give you a list of things he did that were considered absolutely scandalous. He touched and talked and offered comfort. No qualifications. Whatever happened to that Jesus today? You wouldn't get that Jesus listening to preachers today or all the rest that you listen to. But there are those few who remember somewhere in those ancient words, there is comfort for me no matter who and what I am. John records probably not Jesus's words, but what people believed, that wherever Jesus went, there were many rooms. There may be a big inn, but there's always room in the inn for you. Always. You can be an atheist, an agnostic, Jewish, Hindu. No matter what you are, there is always room in the inn. Where do you get that today? Ancient words sometimes remind us that, yes, you are still who you are, and that's perfectly fine. And that comes from Jesus' own lips. Rumi takes a different point. And this is, I have my students memorize this. I said, if you want some less than ancient words, I said, I want you to listen to this and put it on your refrigerator, because this is probably the greatest one little group of words to help you in mental health that you're going to run across. When I first read this, I was absolutely nuts. I don't know if any of you know this. Sorrow prepares you for joy. What is that? Sorrow prepares you. I looked at this and said, you're out of your mind. This is, of course, before I read it. Didn't read the whole thing. I'm screaming, yelling, what is this? This guy is out of his mind. Why is he so sorrow? What is this? Then I shut up, rare, and actually read it. Sorrow prepares you for joy. It violently sweeps everything out of your house. It pulls up the rotten roots so that new roots hidden beneath have room to grow. Sorrow, if you will, is like what happens in a natural forest. We need fires in the forest to clean out all the junk on the forest floor. I'm not talking about man-made fires, about natural forest, clean the stuff out. You and I sometimes don't realize it. We're encumbered with a bunch of decayed junk. We have all these systems, all these things in our who we are. We don't realize how they boxed us in. Sorrow may make you get rid of stuff that you need to get rid of, but you wouldn't know it. Does that ring a bell to anybody? Something happens and you look at something from a new light and you say, I never saw that before. It was right in front of you, but we tend to get ourselves into a box. This other thing that Ruby says, I always thought was a riot too, because it nails the head too. This human being, this being human is a guest house. Look at your lives. Are you a guest house? Every morning a new arrival. Have you ever woken up and you start the day and the next thing, everything goes downhill? Has that ever happened to you? You're like, what? I woke up today, it's supposed to be fine, and what happens? Everything that could possibly go wrong, he's got it. Every morning a new arrival. That's a cute way of putting it. Every morning a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected, unwelcome too, visitor. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing. Again, an attitude change. Why? Be grateful for whoever comes because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Again, rather than seeing this, I hate to use this whole list, as a glass of nasty lemon juice, turn it into lemonade. You can take the sorrow, let it uproot all this junk that's encrusted us, and we didn't realize it. This being human is a guest house and we get stuck with stuff every day. Why not let us use that as a way of cleaning stuff out and becoming alive again? I would suspect that all of us need to get shaken up from time to time, whether we like it or not. The famous phrase, I didn't see that coming. And then afterwards, you feel really, really good. And wondering, like, why didn't I do that before? Have you ever had that question? Like, why didn't I do that before? Or what took me so long? So some things we can do. Ancient words, newer words. Tune-ups. Nobody likes the word therapy. You say therapy today and that people still get their teeth on edge. You need therapy. And it's like you have the plague. It's like you have some social disease that's bad. So I said to my students, I said, you don't like the word therapy. I said, the English language is a riot. I said, let me give you an example. You're not allowed to offer me a bribe. Is that correct? You cannot bribe me. I said, talk to me about the word incentive. What is the difference between incentive and a bribe? A bribe is bad. Incentive is good capitalism. Gives you good ideas, good strength. Yes. All right. Therapy is awful. You don't like the word. How many of you have a car? People raise their hand. I said, to keep your car running and to make it really good, what do? And somebody says a tune-up. I said, now, wouldn't you think tune-up is the same thing you should do for you? And my students go, oh, I never thought of that. I said, are you telling me you show more respect for your car than you do for you? Oh, do you know, and I mentioned this in the last lecture that I gave, I don't know one person I know that is on the road to continual recovery that hasn't had tune-ups in the plural. And my students will say to me, you had to? I said, of course I did. Are you kidding? With a personality like mine, of course I had tune-ups. But I said, they are absolutely essential. You can get out of whack really easily. And everybody has to be aware of that thing called resentment and grievance. Any of you who've been in a 12-step program will know the number one reason people relapse is resentment and all the stuff that comes with it. Tune-ups are absolutely essential, and they're for us to help us. They're for us to help us. Some may need intense tune-ups. There are sometimes, Nina Simone had bipolar. And now we find there's two types of bipolar. And we now have some medicine to work with that. There are all kinds of maladies that humans get afflicted with through who wakes up, who comes out of the womb and says their very first words, wee-ha, I'm bipolar. Who comes out of the womb and says, I have a personality disorder, at the age of 1. The reality is we get stuff through no fault of our own, There's nothing we have done wrong. And there is now medicine to help us. But you need some tune-ups to help diagnose what it is that's really gotten us way, way off the rails. Tune-ups for basic things. Tune-ups for intense things. I'm watching this thing, which I should never watch. There's a thing on Netflix called Night Shift. It's about these Afghan medics, these doctors who are loaded with adrenaline, and they now find themselves in the ER. The ER. I don't know if you know anything about the ER. The ER is insane. The emergency room or one of the trauma centers are absolutely insane. It is nonstop chaos. I loved it. I thought, oh, I could get addicted to this really easily. In fact, when I was in Port Orange, I don't know if those of you in Port Orange remember this. During Bike Week, I made some comment to a bunch of doctors, and 2 orthopedic surgeons said to me, do you want to join us one night in Bike Week? I said, yes, of course. Oh, I was in heaven. This is insane. I went to Bike Week at 7 o'clock in the emergency room at Halifax Hospital. I won't even begin to tell you the stuff that came in, and they were short, so I had to hold a leg as it was being amputated. I had to hold digits that were being this. Oh, yeah. And one orthopedic surgeon is playing hair metal. You walked into the next room by a curtain, he's playing soft spa music. I'm going back and forth, and I'm thinking, oh, the adrenaline. Oh, you can get addicted to this real quick. Wee-haw, you're watching this thing. And I'm thinking, you can get addicted to things and not even realize it. You get addicted to blow-ups, smash-ups, gunfire, and you get addicted to that. You're not even aware of it. Then you go in an ER, and it's like you get addicted. The endorphins are going nuts, and your dopamine's going nuts, and you get addicted and not even know that. You need some serious tune-ups. Tune-ups help us become aware of things we might not be aware of, so we don't go under. And finally, tune-ups may have a different thing altogether. One of our own wrote, they were told all the time there was something wrong with them. And so they were made to feel really, really nasty. So they go to get a tune-up, and the doctor says, there's nothing wrong with you at all. We suspect the people that sent you have the problem, not you. You may find that tune-ups not only get you tuned up or help you become aware of things that are not good for you, but they also may surprisingly reaffirm that you are what you are, and that's fine. So tune-ups are absolutely essential. Old words are essential. And by the way, tune-ups work if you want them to go. If you're made to go, it's not going to work. But if you know and somebody's guiding you with love and affection, I'll call out John Sloan. John Sloan came to me and said to me in January 1995, said, there's a place where we go. And he got me to think about going to Talbot. And that's where I grew up. But John is the one who came over really quietly and said, I need to talk to you. Gave me the shove and push that I needed. Medication. I want to say a few words about medication. I have no idea, I really don't, why people are against taking medicine. You realize I would not be here with you today if I didn't take medicine. That's about as blunt as it gets. If I didn't take the medicine I need for my heart transplant, I wouldn't be here. There are other people who take medicine for diabetes. There are other people who take medicine for blood pressure. I was talking to somebody once, and she said to me, I'm on Paxil now. I wish I would have known about this 20 years ago. I have driven away everybody. I've driven myself away from me. And I finally now have some medicine that works. There are numbers of helps out there for you and for me. They are made to help us. And you can say, well, there's side effects. Living is a side effect. Relationships are a side effect from time to time. My wife can give you a bunch of side effects of living with me. She said, living with Kenneth. Yes. In fact, it's funny. My students come up, and whenever they see Maria Teresa, they never say, how are you? Hello. They said, how do you live with him? That's the first thing they say. Side effects, side effects, side effects. Sometimes medicine can be really, really helpful. Not only for us, for those who have to put up with us. And so I think medicine, we need to have a shout out for medicine. I tell my students, don't you dare be embarrassed. Medicines are big helpers. You've got prostate issues. You've got any kinds of feminine issues. You've got diabetes. You've got this, you've got, I could name 1,000 different things that medicine help people today live and live well. Number 4, your faith. I mentioned the word faith and everybody freaks out. So let me try a different word, a different set of words. What grounds you? What gives you that ground that enables you to somehow plant some roots down and look at everything around you? Maybe the word faith doesn't work. What gets you rooted? What gets you grounded? What enables you to get in touch with things beyond the me, myself, and I? Does that work for everybody? What gets you beyond the me, myself, and I? If there is a divine reality, for me, we were talking earlier about moving along. I wish I'd known about Hindu theology much earlier, where Hindu theology argues divine reality is everywhere and all kinds of everything are facets. Awakening can be a facet. Shaking the roots, getting rid of those dead roots from sorrow can be a facet. Friendship can be a facet of divine reality. Gathering on a Sunday morning can be a facet of divine reality. Coming in touch with another religion. Rumi is a Sufi. Coming in touch with Sufi poetry can be a facet of divine reality. What is there that grounds us? Many of you said before we began today, I'm about my journey. A lot of you are in continual journeys. That's what life is. As I tease my students, you get it all together and it works till it doesn't work. And you're on another journey. And that can be cool. It can be annoying and frightening, but it makes you grow up again and again. Last thing I want to talk about is community before we talk about you. I can't believe how annoying I am. I wrote down here on my notes, I'm a rock. I'm an island. And I put down, really? And how is that working for you, Ducky? There may be some people that can be individuals unto themselves. Really? Really? How is that working? How is that really working? One of the things we learned out, isolating doesn't really help. It gets you in a really bad, dark hole really, really quickly. Most of us need a community. I mean, look at this ragtag lot we call All Souls. We have atheists, non-atheists, Jews, Christians, agnostics, Sufis, Hindu, we got everything. All mixed together all the time and always a work in progress. Somehow we need a sense that we're all in this together, that we're not alone. That we can blurb things out, we can shoot them out. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said. We are what we are in spite of ourselves, and we are embraced in spite of ourselves. There's got to be some place you can be, just be, and you know that's okay. Not just written down someplace, but no matter who you are, what you are here and it's okay. This is part of the way of healing. How you heal your soul, you embrace a community that is healthy. You take medicine if you need medicine. You do tune-ups on a regular basis. You do tune-ups on a regular, and you listen to old words and ancient words. In finding those ancient things, human beings long before us had some wisdom to pass down. You had some things to say about how you heal your soul. I heal in nature, in the quiet and the stillness of the early morning. The Everglades, the ocean, the mountains, places where the only sounds are from the wind, the water, the trees, the animals, places of gratitude and wonder. For me, it is nature, the quietude of the forest, watching the critters whose abode I am observing, remind me to continue to live and appreciate the moment we are in. Through exercise and creating art, For me, it's getting back to the basics. Simplicity brings me back. Very simply, I heal my soul by singing, writing interpretive spiritual music for biblical scripture. Works well with resonance breathing to blot out disquieting noises and chaos. Very simply, I heal my soul by singing. I love to be alone with the divine. It speaks to my soul. A couple of others wrote, they have been on long, long, long journeys. And finally, one said, you know what? I discovered that all I had ever wanted, was to love and be loved. How did you heal your soul? I wanted to love and be loved. One person wrote, I owe most of my life to mental health professionals, and I'm grateful there are medications that have helped me along the way. All of these are ways in which, in a myriad ways, we have learned about ourselves. The reality is we're all a work in progress. You know, if you think you're going to be healed and boom, it's lollipops, sunshine, and roses, it doesn't work like that. We are a guest house. You know, those uninvited guests arrive. That's not the question. The question is, what do we do when they arrive? We remember we're a work in progress. We remember love. We remember there are things out there called medicine and tune-ups. We remember that we make good choices and we make bad choices, and that's the way it is. Nobody here is a God that I'm aware of. Nobody, and even the gods made bad mistakes. Have you ever read Greek mythology? What a mess that is. Holy mackerel. It makes the inquirer look polite and tame. Have you ever really read Greek mythology? Holy mackerel. They could all be arrested by today's standards. We are always a work in progress. We make good choices, we make bad choices. But the final analysis is, in healing the soul, we need each other. We need friendship. We need love. And we need to continually work on what grounds us, what roots us, what moves us beyond the me, myself, and I, to embrace this strange mixed affair we call life. We heal, and then get bruised, and we heal again, and we heal again, and we share our stories with each other that we may heal some more. Amen. I always love that for talking about getting it together and going on. Judy Collins, from Another Era, Another Time. We mentioned Jesus earlier. He was poor, and he did what had been handed down to him, which had been handed down earlier and earlier. The first bread we know is grain, appears in the Levant, probably about 10,000 BCE, about 12,000 years ago. It was, everybody could have it. It was bread. Bread is a basic element of keeping humans alive. It has been used again and again in various phrases. The idea of bread was to offer, even if you were poor, the stranger, somebody visiting, you offered bread and a common cup. And it was thanks to Dominic Crossan, who pointed out we've got the whole story of Jesus wrong if we look at the Last Supper. First of all, they didn't know it was going to be a Last Supper when they had it, did they? And secondly, nobody wrote anything down, so we're not as sure exactly what he said. But we do know one thing that did happen is Jesus had meals with everybody all the time. And the meal was an essential way of welcoming and saying hello and establishing friendship and establishing the old-fashioned phrase fellowship. So at All Souls from the beginning, we offered a meal. This is not a divine mystery. It is not to be celebrated by somebody who waves a hand and says a special prayer, and that's it. It is simply bread and a cup. And so we took a simple bread, a simple cup, and a simple bread, unleavened and very, very simple. And we would break it and hold it to everybody and ask those who wish to come forward, take some bread and dip it into the cup. There are a variety of people for whom this didn't work. This should not be a time of ununity. It should be a time of being together. So when we finished with that, we made a big circle around the table and we said, for anybody else who wishes to come forward, and people would come forward and we would hold hands. And together we would say these words. And where we got these words is from Winnie the Pooh, of all things, and other people as well. And so I would ask you to mute up and we'll say these words together. I'll say one and you say it after me. I'll say a phrase and you say it after me, just like we used to do when we met in person. Promise me you'll remember. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think. God didn't promise days without pain, laughter without sorrows, sun without rain. But the divine did promise strength for the day, comfort for the tears, and light for the way. We also developed early on the famous black chip. If anybody here has a black chip to return, this is if you have worked on something over the week or last couple of weeks and you need to return a black chip, hold it up. And we give thanks that you are able to work with whatever was deeply bothering you. Now, if you don't have a black chip and you want one, we'll be glad to send you lots. So just let me know in an email and I will send you by first class postage a lot of these. Okay, Nick, remind me in an email. I won't remember from the chat. Does anybody have something that bothered them this week? Does anybody have something that bothered them? Hold up a black chip. This means you've got a job to do. And I see Maureen has 10. Excellent. 10. Her sister's visiting. So that's another 10. So we've got some of you have black chips to hold up. Your job then is to work on these. And next time we hope you'll be able to hold them up and says you've done your work and working through a really annoying guest at your house. An annoying guest at your house. We have a prayer, parting music, and then a blessing. May the blessings of God be upon us in this hour and in the days to come, that we may seek the truth more devotedly, that we may think more independently, that we may reflect more searchingly, that we may know ourselves more completely, we may forgive more quickly, pray more thoughtfully, act more courageously, and that we may live more nobly.
Ken, you're muted.
You're muted, Doc.
We end, as we usually do, with an interesting blessing, Irish and Hindu. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rains fall softly upon your fields. And when we meet again, may the divine in me greet and embrace the divine in you. Amen. And before we go, let's be sure to say goodbye.